Let me try and see if I can advance my slides. There we go. Okay, so I just want to kind of give you an outline of what we're going to talk about or touch on this evening. You know, what is a fad diet? We're going to talk about kind of what a fad diet is, how to identify what a fad diet is, kind of red flags, so to speak. Then we're going to go over some popular examples of current fad diets that you might read about, hear about, see on social media, those types of things. We're going to go over some benefits and drawbacks, kind of pros and cons. And then we'll get into some nutrition trends or some not maybe not trends, but some things that you might see and think are fact, sort of thing. Then conclusions and questions, we'll finish it up at the end. Okay, so what is a fad diet? Okay, there is actually no one single definition of what a fad diet is. You can Google it all you want. Probably every website will come up with something different, but according to the Cleveland Clinic, fad diets are plans sold as the best and fastest approach to losing weight. However, the Federal Trade Commission will define fad diets as those that are highly restrictive and promoting energy-dense foods that are often poor in nutrients, usually not supported by research. Now, when I think of a fad diet, I think of something that's like a fad, something that's in fashion or fashionable, something that's popular, and it's usually popular for a short period of time. And although we're only going to be talking about a few fad diets, you'll see that sometimes a fad diet will sort of be called something years ago, and maybe some things will change, but it'll be called something else down the road. So ways to identify a fad diet, or I like to say kind of red flags, because to me, by the end of this, I hope you'll take away a little bit of the fact that I am not a big fad diet promoter. I don't know that there are many dietitians that do promote fad diets. So that's why I said red flags. Generally, because when you're talking about a fad diet, they're usually promising a quick fix, right? You're going to lose 10 pounds in 1 week, or, and going along with that, it sounds too good to be true, right? You hear that you're going to lose this amount of weight in this amount of time. It's a quick fix. It's like a miracle. Also, fad diets will often label foods as good or bad, or they'll put them into categories like you cannot eat this because it's bad for you. These are the only good foods, and that ties into eliminating one or more food groups, right? So a fad diet is usually, or quite often, eliminating one or more food groups. A lot of times you'll see that a fad diet, it might be based on a single study, or there's not a lot of research behind the fad diet. Or even if there is a single study, it could be limited to a certain, like 10 people. There's not much data available on the fad diet. There are also some, I am at home, I must admit, and my children must have forgotten that I'm giving a presentation, because I hear someone calling me, so I apologize for that. Anyway, a lot of fad diets will often trying to sell a product, which can be very expensive. And again, a lot of them are not backed by peer review, so research studies. Okay. So if you see any of these popping up, do this diet because you'll lose this much weight, and we did a study, and those are red flags that it is likely a fad diet. So I wanted to start this presentation on fad diets to talk about popular low carb diets. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have heard of one of these or both of these. Some examples: I didn't include all of them because there's more than just the keto diet and paleo diet that are considered low carb. There's Atkins diet, the South Beach diet, maybe even Whole30. I'm not sure, but I'm just focusing on the keto and paleo diet. They're both considered low carb diets. So first up, we're going to talk about the keto diet. And I have a little image here that says vegetables are cool, because on the keto diet, it's not that you can't eat vegetables, but you're very limited to the amount that you can eat. And I want to start out by saying that years ago, when I started working at the hospital nearby, the keto diet, I was always scared of someone coming in on the keto diet. It was usually, it was meant for children who had a specific type of epilepsy, and they were put on the keto diet to help control the seizures. In some cases, and some specific type of seizures, this keto diet helps control seizures. And I was always afraid if I was working on the weekend, because I didn't cover pediatrics, but if I was working the weekend, I covered the whole hospital, and I was petrified I was going to get a keto patient. So to give you just an idea, this diet was created for this reason. Anyhow, the goal of the diet for the ketogenic diet is to have your body burning fat for energy rather than burning carbohydrates. Okay. And by doing this, it puts your body in a state of ketosis. I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of the keto diet. I wanted to just kind of touch on it. And I will say that I think people will come to me and, what do you think about the keto diet? I think people follow what they want to with the keto diet. But if you're doing it seriously, I believe people even check their ketones in their urine. I mean, it's very involved. The carbohydrates are very limited. You want your body to be burning fat when you're on the keto diet. But keep in mind, your brain's main source of energy is carbohydrates. It prefers that energy source. When you're on the keto diet, your brain has to switch to other energy sources. On the keto diet, your carbohydrate intake is drastically lowered, anywhere between 20 and 50 grams of carbohydrate, and that will put you into ketosis. And once you start the keto diet and you're doing it very serious, limiting it to 20 to 50 grams of carbs a day, it's not like you're automatically going to be in ketosis. It may take several days. And just to give you an idea, one small apple has about 21 grams of carbohydrates. So, 1 cup of raw vegetables has 5 grams of carbohydrates. So it's a very limited carbohydrate diet. This diet is, you're going to increase your intake of fats and protein, and it doesn't really, listen, you could go on this diet and eat grilled chicken, and avocado oil or olive oil as a healthier fat and healthier protein, but it doesn't really differentiate. As long as you're eating protein and fat and not carbohydrates, you're doing it correctly. This diet is very limited in obviously fruit, vegetables, and whole grains, because all of those are carbohydrate containing foods. So are there some benefits to the keto diet? Well, if you're on this keto diet, you're likely going to lose weight. Some people do report after getting into ketosis that they feel like they have more energy or clarity, or the brain fog is lifted. I can't tell you from experience because I've never done it, but that's what some people say. Obviously, one positive benefit to this diet will help who are suffering from these seizures. It will help reduce or prevent the seizures if they're following it. It may improve glucose control for a short period of time for type 2 diabetics, but there is very limited long-term research, especially on possible benefits to the ketogenic diet. Because here's the bottom line: if you're eating a high-fat diet, high-protein diet, how is that affecting, your heart well, I guess we'll go to the drawbacks. It can be high in saturated fat, right? If you're eating a diet high in animal protein, like beef, for instance, is high in saturated fat, which is bad for your heart and your cholesterol. So it can be associated with an increase of your bad cholesterol or your LDL cholesterol. And if you're following this diet, again, it's limiting food groups or avoiding some food groups altogether. So there could be possible nutrient deficiencies because you're not eating a lot of fruit, you're not eating some veggies, but not a lot, and grains are almost eliminated. So with limited fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, it could lead to constipation. That's another drawback or risk. And in general, this type of diet is hard to, it's hard to sustain in the long term. It might be a temporary fix, but if you're if you want to go on this diet and you're 50 years old, are you going to, and you live till you're 85, that's 35 years that you're going to be eating on this diet. That's very strict. So it's not really practical. So then we come next up is a paleo diet, again, a low carb diet. So the purpose of the paleo diet, or I guess the background of it, is to eat as humans did during the Paleolithic era, or like the caveman period, right? And that paleo era dates from 2.5 million years ago to 10,000 years ago. So somewhere in that range. The concept behind it is that our genes aren't suited for the current modern diets and current modern farming practices like we have today. It is not as extreme as keto, but it is still considered more of a low carb diet. It does include some fruit, vegetables, meat, nuts and seeds, but it avoids all grains, legumes, beans, lentils, and peanuts, and it avoids dairy. Okay. Basically, if our ancestors could hunt or gather it, then it's allowed on the paleo diet. What are some possible benefits? Well, again, weight loss. Most of the time, if you're avoiding certain food groups, you're limited to what you can eat. You're probably not going to eat as much, and therefore you're likely going to lose weight. A benefit, I think, over the keto diet would be that there is fruit and vegetables and lean meat that is emphasized. It's encouraged, obviously, to avoid processed foods, because if you're not having grains, you're not having chips and pretzels and crackers and things like that. But then again, you're not having whole grains like whole wheat bread and brown rice, which on the flip side are healthy for us. A short-term study suggests that you could improve your blood pressure, cholesterol, and triglycerides, but there are no long-term clinical studies that I came across. What are some drawbacks or cons to being on this type of diet? Well, the absence, you're not eating whole grains and legumes, the nuts and stuff. Whole grains and legumes, they're a good source of fiber. They have protein, vitamins, minerals. So if you eliminate that from your diet, you're eliminating all of the good stuff that comes with it. No dairy. So you need to think about where you're going to get your calcium, and also protein. Dairy does provide protein in the diet. So calcium, dairy, those are some things that you'll have to think about. And I mean, one drawback could be that it is costly because, you're eating a lot of meat, and it does tend to promote you wanting to eat more like grass-fed beef and organic stuff. So it could be costly. Grains and legumes are usually a little bit more affordable. And to be honest, it's questionable, the whole theory about how our ancestors ate, because there's, if you read some of the literature, they've found tools that have been used to sort of farm grains even back then. So who knows if this idea is even true, so to speak. So next up, I came across the vegan diet as being a fad diet. It's been around for forever. Many people eat this way for certain specific reasons, but it has become sort of a fad or trendy diet. A lot of famous people have Paul McCartney, Alicia Silverstone. There's many, many famous people that follow a vegan diet. So it's kind of in the spotlight. With the vegan diet, it's plant-based only. That only plant-based foods are included. So you're included. So everything else that's comes from an animal is excluded. So meat, dairy, any other animal products, including honey, because that's made, bees make honey. If you follow a vegan diet, fortified foods and supplements should be added to your diet because it is very strict. So, but are there benefits to being vegan? So it does encourages a limited intake of processed foods when done correctly. And I say when done correctly because you can be vegan and, like here I put at the bottom in all caps, you can follow a vegan diet and be overweight and obese. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose weight if you follow a vegan diet, because I believe that I think it's Oreos. I mean, you could find a lot of junk food that is vegan. So it doesn't mean, even though the premise is, the idea behind it is to have more of a plant-based diet, you could still go off and eat as much junk food as you want technically. If you follow it the way that it's intended or eat the way that it's intended, it could possibly reduce your risk of heart disease by decreasing your cholesterol, promoting weight loss, which is also beneficial to your heart. And if you eat a diet rich in plant foods, it may have the benefit of lowering your chance of certain cancers. Again, when it's done correctly. Some of the drawbacks, potential nutrient deficiencies, because you're eliminating many food groups or, anything animal based. Of concern, if you avoid those food groups, are things like iron, vitamin B12, calcium, vitamin D, and omega-3 fatty acids. This type of diet, I definitely, if someone was interested in following, I would say speak to your doctor, have lab work done, because you can really become deficient in some of these vitamins and minerals. And again, like I mentioned in the previous slide, many people continue to eat processed foods. If you're going to go vegan, it should be more beans, nuts, seeds, obviously vegetables and fruit, and avoiding the processed foods. You really need to be very mindful of the foods you are and are not consuming. You kind of have to think about trying to get all of the nutrients you need every day. It's very restrictive, usually requiring some type of supplementation. Next up, and I put the Mediterranean diet on here because it is very trendy. It's news often. You hear a lot of people talking about it. So I wanted to put it in here, kind of give it a highlight. The Mediterranean diet is a way of eating based mainly on the countries that border the Mediterranean Sea. Some people, associate it a lot with like Italy and Greece, for instance. This diet or way of eating or lifestyle of eating consists mostly of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, seeds, nuts, olives, and olive oil. Okay. You can see what I just named is very limited processed foods. Okay. There's a moderate amount of fish and seafood, poultry in moderation, and red meat and sweets are very limited in this eating style. They emphasize more of a plant-based foods and healthy fats. Okay, so like nuts and seeds and olives and olive oil, that type of thing. And dairy is thrown in there too, like feta cheese. Who doesn't love feta cheese? So what are some possible benefits to following this type of I don't like to call it necessarily a diet because there are no like specific rules, you have to eat this many servings or that many servings. It's just how they eat in this region. It may lower the risk of heart disease because the diet is low in saturated fat. You're not eating a ton of animal protein. And when you do, it's usually fish, nuts and seeds, which are high in omega-3 fatty acids, which is good for our heart. It may help with weight loss. And again, because it's heavily plant-based, may lower the risk of certain types of cancer, and it could help support healthy blood sugars. Okay. This type of diet, meal plan, lifestyle includes many different nutrients that work together to sort of help the body. There's no single food or ingredient that's responsible for the benefits. It's the combination of all of it together. It's a diet limited in saturated fat and trans-saturated fats. Trans-saturated fats are found in a lot of processed foods, and it encourages the use of unsaturated fats like olives and olive oil. It's lower in sodium, a lot of fiber, antioxidants from the fruits and vegetables and whatnot. I put drawbacks question mark because I couldn't really find any. I guess there is a potential to eat higher calorie foods, like if you overeat use too much olive oil, eat too many nuts. I guess you can maybe gain weight on it. I mean, obviously in those countries that are on the Mediterranean diet, I'm sure there are people that are overweight. But I didn't find many drawbacks. It could be costly for some people, because you're not eating, like a lot of processed foods are cheaper. So it could be that might be a little more expensive. Again, this is more of a lifestyle than a true diet, in the sense the word diet that most people use the word. The people in this region just eat this way without particular like measurements. It's just the way that they eat. So compared to the standard American diet, the SAD diet, this diet contains fewer meats and fewer processed carbohydrates, and it's higher in the unsaturated fats, more plants, more nuts, olives, olive oil, that type of thing. All right, so I wanted to put in some honorable mentions for fad diets. One big one that I hear a lot of people talk about is intermittent fasting. I think that the problem with fad diets is you hear one snippet of the fad diet and you think that's all that there is to it. So intermittent fasting, it's sort of a time restricted way of eating, but there's many different ways. Like some people eat 5 days and then fast for 2 days, or you fast one day and you eat the next. And when on the days that you're fasting, some of them you say less than 500 calories per day. Some people eat within a certain time frame, right? So you fast 16 hours a day and then eat within the 8-hour period. It focuses more on when you're going to eat than what you're eating. This diet definitely is not for everyone. If you're pregnant, if you were diabetic, if you have a history of eating disorder, it probably is not the type of fat diet you want to try. This diet, it might just be the reduction in calories that you experience weight loss, right? So it's similar to other lower calorie diets, because if you think about it, if you're eating within an 8-hour window, you're probably not eating as much as if you started eating in the morning, but very limited data on some of that. Another honorable mention that I wanted to put in here are juice cleanses or detox diets. So I was listening to maybe a podcast, or maybe I was reading something, but when someone's cleansing or detoxing, what do they ever really say what you're trying to detox? Because our bodies do a great job at that. That's why we have, our liver and our kidneys and, our lungs expel CO2. Our bodies are great at detoxifying what we need to. Basically, these types of things are just fruit juice. And when you do that, you miss out on the fiber. They're pretty much just very low calorie diets. Sure, you might lose weight, you're going to probably lose it very fast, but the minute you go back to eating regular food, it's not really teaching you how to eat or a good relationship with food. It's just a very low calorie diet. It's obviously not a balanced diet because it's missing a lot of nutrients. And there's really a lack of clinical evidence about it in the long term. Now I kind of wanted to talk about some like nutrition trends that I feel like dietitians get asked often. I'll have people so brown sugar versus white sugar. And people say, even, when you go to a coffee shop, they'll have, sugar in the raw or like white sugar. Listen, sugar is sugar. Brown sugar is the same as white sugar. It's just brown because it has molasses. It doesn't mean it's any healthier for you. It's not like brown rice versus white rice. It's the same thing. So don't worry it's just going to make your coffee or your tea sweet. Sugar is sugar. This is another one, brown eggs being more nutritious than white eggs. The egg color has nothing to do with the quality of it, the flavor, the nutrition in it, how it's going to cook, nothing. The egg shell color actually depends on the breed of the hen. The white eggs and brown eggs are pretty much identical in nutrition unless they're feeding their hens their feed has been enhanced with, some eggs, they say like high in omega-3s, their feed has been enhanced with some kind of omega-3 to make it have more omega-3s in it. Excuse me. Another one, and actually this just came up a couple weeks ago. I had some client ask me, is it true if I eat this, it's going to burn calories? The notion that certain foods can burn fat or burn calories, no foods can burn fat or calories. So that goes back to like the grapefruit, celery, or cabbage soup diet. You're going to lose weight on it because it's a very low calorie diet, not because it's going to burn fat for you. Weight loss is basically eating less calories and having more physical activity. Okay, and sea salt versus table salt. If sea salt is like a big thing nowadays, everything's like sea salt this, sea salt that. It's the same nutritional value. It's gonna salt your food just the same. There might be a little bit of difference in texture and taste. One thing, sea salt, unless it's been like fortified, sea salt does not contain iodine or additives. So, and we do need iodine. That's why salt is usually iodized to make sure that we don't have an iodine deficiency. But there really is no difference. So conclusions, to wrap it up, in general, diets in general fail because usually you're doing it just temporarily. They can make us feel deprived so that when you go off of it, or when you have something that's not on the diet, you tend to overeat because it hasn't really taught you anything. Some of these diets just might not fit into our lifestyle, especially long term. And it's really not the whole picture. Again, it's sort of sometimes people pick and choose what they want from the diet, thinking it's going to work for them. I want to say that in the end, it's focusing on overall lifestyle changes. No one ever wants to hear that. And I was talking yesterday to a client about this, that when it comes to diet, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We have to think about it long term. How can we eat for the long term? It's not a fad diet. I will just say that. We have to think about physical activity. We want to get the proper amount of sleep. It's all encompassing, right? Eating properly, getting enough exercise. It's all the things that we know we should be doing, making sure we're getting enough water, managing our stress. There are ways that we work at, and thinking about portion control. And the next slide I want to put up, I think this is a great resource, is the healthy eating plate. You can also use my plate, myplate.gov. It kind of replaces what the food guide pyramid was, kind of shows you how breakfast, lunch, and dinner, how you could set up your plate. Lunch and dinner, absolutely half your plate should be vegetables. The more vegetables, the more variety, the better. You want a quarter of your plate to be whole grains or the carbohydrate, focusing more on whole grains. Think brown rice, whole wheat pasta, quinoa, couscous, those types of things, limiting refined carbohydrates. And a quarter of your plate should be healthy protein, fish, poultry, beans, nuts. You could even do tofu or tempeh, avoiding red meat, processed meats, things like bacon, for instance, sausage, and healthy fats. So olive oil, avocado oil, nuts and seeds have healthy fats as well. And eating fruit, and making sure you're drinking enough water. So